Prologue. Renald Fanwar prepares for a storm and army gathering, while Felendra is assigned by Rand al'Thor to deliver a message to the Daughter of the Nine Moons. Tylee Kirgan's army is ambushed by monstrous creatures. Grendel meets Moradin, Demandred, and Missana, who discuss Semirhage's capture. Moradin refuses to help rescue her. Ituralde observes the Seanchan army's approach to Darluna, realizing they plan a quick siege. The prophet, now known as Masema, reflects on his dwindling followers and his desire for revenge against Perrin Ibera. Ultimately, he is ambushed and killed by Fela Ibera, sealing his fate. In Chapter 1, the city of Tar-Valon faces a siege, with Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn, struggling with his leadership burden and the Dark One's influence. He prepares for the last battle, Tarmon Gaiden, while overseeing military preparations at Almuth Plain. Rand senses the threat of Grendel, a Forsaken, potentially hiding in Aradomin. Katswane and other Aes Sedai, including Nynaeve and Olivia, confront Rand about questioning Semirhage, another Forsaken, leading to tension over treatment methods. Rand asserts that he won't allow harm to Semirhage, revealing his internal struggle and determination to maintain his moral compass despite mounting pressure. In Chapter 2, Egwene endures a severe beating from Sylviana, but remains resolute against the White Tower's oppressive authority. She discusses her dinner with Elaida, who is arrogant and suggests altering the Three Oaths. Despite the pain of her punishment, Egwene laughs at the absurdity of her situation, realizing that her true strength lies in understanding rather than hardness. She reflects on the fear among the sisters under Elaida's leadership and vows to maintain her unity within the White Tower. Egwene resolves to confront Elaida's tyranny, recognizing her responsibility as the Amerlin seat to resist change. In Chapter 3, Aviendha observes refugees struggling along a pathway, feeling pity for their situation. She reflects on her transition from a maiden to a new role and her determination to marry Rand al'Thor, despite uncertainties about her status among the Wise Ones. Rourke discusses the challenges the Isle face in Aradomin, hinting at the complexity of their mission. Amys informs Aviendha of her punishment, which involves sorting and counting seeds, a task she finds humiliating and frivolous. Aviendha realizes the severity of her mistake, prompting her to resolve to regain her honor and understand her role. In Chapter 4, Gawain observes a village illuminated by torches carried by soldiers wearing Aes Sedai uniforms. Despite the soldiers' cordial behavior, he decides against engaging them, concerned for the villagers' safety and the risk of drawing attention to his group. Gawain reflects on his loyalty to Elaine and Egwene, grappling with his feelings of guilt over past conflicts. He leads his men away from the village, feeling the weight of their situation and questioning the White Tower's orders. As they ride into the night, he longs for clarity and the visibility of the stars hidden behind clouds. In Chapter 5, Rand navigates a busy war camp filled with soldiers and Aes Sedai reflecting on his reliance on them, especially Elza Penfell and Corel Hovian. He deals with the consequences of his leadership as tensions rise regarding male channelers. He receives a letter from Darlin about army preparations and instructs a soldier to recruit more. When the Seafolk ambassador Hareen arrives, they discuss delayed grain shipments, revealing further distrust. Rand learns of Aiel on the camp's outskirts and plans a meeting with Ruark and Bael, realizing he must secure Aradomin amid the looming threat of Sheol Gul. In Chapter 6, Rodel Ituralde surveys the aftermath of a brutal battle against the Seanchan at Darluna, where half of his forces suffered casualties. He meets the injured Seanchan general Turan, who admires Ituralde's tactical maneuvers, but warns him of the Seanchan's persistence and intelligence. Ituralde acknowledges his eventual defeat, but believes in the importance of resistance for future generations. After Turan's death, Ituralde reflects on his actions. Meanwhile, in a prison cell, Liane and Egwene experience a strange phenomenon as the cell begins to melt. They narrowly escape as the tower's chaos escalates, leading to unexpected room swaps among the sisters. In Chapter 7, Nynaeve feels a storm approaching as she grapples with her untested status as an Aes Sedai. During a lesson with Daejeon, she expresses frustration with the Aes Sedai hierarchy. Outside, she learns of the Ael clan chief's arrival and seeks out Rand. Inside the Ael tent, Rand leads strategic discussions about Aradomin, emphasizing the need for peace amid chaos. Ruark and Bael confront Rand about his demands, while Kitsuan questions his approach. Rand proposes seizing the Council of Merchants to restore order, relying on Roark and Bale's cunning, knowing that challenges await, especially from Ituralde. In Chapter 8, Siuan observes dark clouds over Tar-Valon as she meets Lelaine, who is struggling with negotiations. Concerned for Egwene's safety and Lelaine's rising influence, Siuan reflects on her diminished status and gathers intelligence on Gareth Bryne. During their conversation, Siuan reveals a critical foretelling about the Dragon Reborn, emphasizing her commitment to the last battle and the need to prioritize her oaths. Siuan informs Egwene about a Forsaken's presence in their camp, suspecting Delana's servant Halima. They discuss the Dragon Reborn's decisions regarding Aes Sedai and the emerging threat from Lelaine. The chapter concludes with Siuan contemplating the approaching last battle. In Chapter 9, Perrin prepares for departure from Malden, managing 100,000 refugees after a recent battle. He prioritizes their safety over attacking nearby Aiel despite pressure from Captains Arganda and Bertain. While inspecting wagons, he reflects on his leadership failures, especially regarding his rescue of Fail, feeling guilt for lost lives, particularly that of Aram. Perrin orders the refugees to march northward, seeking to distance them from the Shaido. He acknowledges his leadership role and the expectations of his men, but struggles with the weight of responsibility. He resolves to seek out Rand, who needs his support. In Chapter 10, Rodel Ituralde waits for support against the Seanchan forces, doubting the Taraboners will aid him. He decides to fortify an abandoned steading to counter the Seanchan's domain advantage. Rand al'Thor arrives, urging Ituralde to shift his focus from fighting the Seanchan to a larger threat, suggesting the king may be influenced by Grandal. Rand offers Ituralde 100 channelers to assist him, explaining the potential of gateways for rapid movement. They agree on a plan to secure Arad Doman while Ituralde prepares to lead his forces to the borderlands. Rand promises to help with the Seanchan. In Chapter 11, Aviendha grapples with her perceived failures in teaching Rand al'Thor Aiel customs while carrying out her punishment. As she observes a subdued camp and the Wetlander soldiers' complaints, chaos erupts when a guard transforms and ignites. Aviendha channels water to save him, but Rand emerges furious about an unseen enemy. Melaine praises Aviendha's weaving skills, but expresses concern over Rand's arrogance and his handling of Damani merchants. Aviendha realizes the Isle's fragile loyalty and feels the burden of their future. Exhausted, she resists the urge to seek Rand, determined to regain her honor first. In Chapter 12, Egwene navigates the White Tower as Amerlin despite pressure from her Red Keepers. She meets Aes Sedai discussing loyalty and authority and confronts Maidani about her loyalties. They evade their watchers to discover secret meetings among Aes Sedai. Egwene questions the legitimacy of Elaita's leadership, revealing that a Black Aja member was involved in deposing Siwan Sanche, making Elaita's position invalid. She challenges the group to unite against the Black Aja, emphasizing cooperation among Ajas. Egwene asserts her authority, urging them to work together for the tower's future, despite her status as a novice. In Chapter 13, Gawain spars with Warders Sleet and Marlish, demonstrating his sword skills while reflecting on his commitment to his sister Elaine. He learns of a rift among the Aes Sedai after overhearing Kavarla, Narenwin, and Katarine discussing the rebels Amerlin. Shockingly, he discovers that Egwene al'Vir has been captured and is likely to face execution. Determined to rescue her, Gawain packs his saddlebags and plans to inspect the 4th outpost as a cover for his departure. Despite Sleet's warning and recognition of Gawain's resolve, Gawain leaves Dorland to seek help for Egwene. In Chapter 14, Sorillia assesses Semerhage, intrigued yet cautious, as Katswani uses a unique weave to keep the Forsaken awake and disoriented. They discuss the effectiveness of pain as a means of interrogation. Semerhage, despite her exhaustion, remains defiant, taunting the Aiel about their history and honor. Katswani reveals a hidden box containing a dangerous Atom designed for male channelers, raising concerns about its potential use by the Seanchan or Forsaken. Sorillia and Katswani agree to devise a plan to address Rand al'Thor's troubling behavior and the threat posed by the Atom for the sake of their cause. In Chapter 15, Rand wakes in a familiar stone hallway, recalling his last moments at the Damani Manor. He encounters Moradin, who reveals that he is not truly dead and taunts Rand about their bond and the Dark One's inevitable return. Meanwhile, Min cares for Rand and urges him to share his burdens, acknowledging the voice of Luz Theron inside him. Rand struggles with the risk of letting this voice control him, but recognizes its knowledge of the One Power. Min insists he must destroy the seals on the Dark One's prison. In the camp, Avienda and Amys discuss the Seanchan's actions and their need for vengeance, highlighting the tension in Rand's leadership. In Chapter 16, Egwene Alvir is summoned by 3 Aes Sedai to discuss Rand al'Thor. Advocating for diplomacy, she emphasizes the need to heal divisions within the White Tower. Afterward, Katarine punishes Egwene for refusing to curtsy, assigning her chores instead of studies. Laras offers an escape plan, which Egwene declines. Later, Egwene attends a dinner with Elaida and several sitters from different Ajas, realizing Elaida aims to bully them rather than unify. During the tense dinner, Egwene asserts the Seanchan are a threat, defying Elaida's demands and risking punishment. Elaida responds violently, attacking Egwene during the confrontation. In Chapter 17, Katswani observes Sarene questioning Simmerhage while she remains shielded. Katswani's frustration grows as the Aes Sedai fail to extract information from the Forsaken. After 3 hours of interrogation, Katswana realizes they need a different approach. When a serving woman spills food, Katswani intervenes, demonstrating her dominance by physically confronting Simmerhage. Katswana forces Simmerhage to eat food from the floor, aiming to undermine her image. This act shocks the Aes Sedai present, but Katswan believes it's necessary to shift the power dynamic. Meanwhile, Perrin grapples with the logistics of leading a large group of refugees, facing challenges in balancing his responsibilities and the looming threat of the last battle. In Chapter 18, Siuan arrives at the Aes Sedai camp to find a crowd gathered around a meeting. She learns from Sheriam that Elaida has discovered traveling, a dangerous revelation that could compromise their safety. A courier is sent to warn Lord Bryan to be cautious of their enemy, who might now flank them. As Siuan navigates the chaos, she realizes that Lelaine may be manipulating the situation to create fear and assert control. Sharina, an older novice, offers to carry Siuan's laundry, revealing her keen observations about the Aes Sedai's politics. Siuan vows to alert the Emerlin about Sharina's loyalty, recognizing the growing tension in the camp. In Chapter 19, Tuon returns to Ibudar amid civil unrest following the Empress's death. Facing threats from within, she appoints Selucia as her truth speaker and confronts Beslan, king of Altara, demanding loyalty to solidify her control. Tuon discusses military strategies with General Yulan, who proposes a raid on Tar Valon to capture Marath Damani, essential for their war effort against Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn. Lieutenant General Tylee returns, revealing her encounter with humanoid creatures believed to be Trollocs. Despite the chaos, Tuon decides to meet with Rand, recognizing the urgency of their position and the need for alliance over conflict. In Chapter 20, Mat and Talmans ride down a broken road with a force of 7,000 men after sending Tuon back to Ebudar. Mat reflects on his status as a nobleman and the threat to Tuon. Vanine identifies their location near Hinderstap, confirming the plan to head for Kemlin to gather supplies. The arrival of Aes Sedai, led by Jolene, complicates matters as she demands 24 horses for her group. Mat firmly denies her request, insisting his men remain with him. They plan to buy supplies in Hinderstap, aware that food is scarce, and Mat decides to visit a tavern for leisure and resupply. In Chapter 21, Perrin navigates the Wolf Dream, learning to control his wolf nature with guidance from Hopper. Meanwhile, Fael, reflecting on her reunion with Perrin after her captivity, leaves their tent with Aiel women to honor those who died protecting them. They find a small bundle containing items belonging to the fallen, igniting memories and grief. Fael leads a small ceremony to honor the dead Aiel, recognizing their sacrifice and kindness. Back in the tent, Perrin contemplates his leadership and the importance of making tough decisions, including allowing Fael to face danger again before drifting back to sleep. In Chapter 22, Simmerhage vows revenge after escaping her cell and discovering the bodies of the Aes Sedai. She gains the Domination Band and confronts Rand, controlling him to harm Min. Despite his struggle, Rand channels an unknown potent force, overwhelming him with power. In a fit of rage, he uses this energy to destroy the collar controlling him and obliterates Simmerhage and Elza. Exhausted but aware of the gravity of his actions, Rand realizes he has harmed Min and acknowledges that they have taken everything from him. He resolves to become unbreakable, entering a void devoid of emotion. In Chapter 23, Katswani learns that 2 Aes Sedai, Corel and Nasune, survived an attack but are weak, while Daejeon is dead. Althor has dealt with the threat of Semerhage, revealing he used balefire to kill her. Katswana discovers a pair of terangrial bracelets, suggesting they were stolen from her. Tension rises as Althor coldly informs her that she is exiled from his presence and warns he could kill her if he wished. He instructs the remaining allies to prepare their armies, announcing his intent to leave by week's end, leaving Katswana disturbed by his transformation. In Chapter 24, Gawain arrives at Gareth Bryne's war camp, feeling conflicted after abandoning his men. He insists on discussing Egwene's imprisonment and the urgent need for a stealthy rescue. Despite Gawain's pleas, Bryne, bound by oaths, refuses to act unless Egwene instructs him to. Bryne agrees to seek an audience with Aes Sedai for Gawain. The conversation shifts to Elaine, revealing she holds the Lion Throne in Kemlin. Gawain remains focused on rescuing Egwene, despite Bryne's insistence that he return to support Elaine. They then search for an Aes Sedai among the camp followers. In Chapter 25, Sheriam reflects on her newfound position as Keeper of the Chronicles, enjoying a brief respite from pain and turmoil. However, her peace is disrupted when a mysterious figure, likely one of the Chosen, orders her to depose Egwene Alvir and steal Sleepweavers for her in 3 days, threatening punishment for failure. Meanwhile, Egwene endures imprisonment and awaits trial for her actions against Elaida, who accuses her of being a Darkfriend. Sain informs Egwene of the trial's proceedings and the ongoing chaos within the tower, emphasizing the need to unite against the Dark One's influence. In Chapter 26, Aviendha prepares to depart for Rhuidean, ready to confront her destiny as a Wise One. The Wise Ones inform her that her defiance indicates her acceptance, and she must contemplate her journey in the threefold land. Aviendha acknowledges her honor has returned and prepares to travel, promising to return quickly after passing through the Pillars of Glass in Rhuidean. Meanwhile, in another tent, Shemrin, a runaway Aes Sedai, confesses her escape from the tower and the impact of Elaida's reign. The meeting is disrupted when a swarm of cockroaches invades, forcing the women to flee and burn the tent, highlighting the looming darkness ahead. In Chapter 27, Mat leaves camp with Aes Sedai, warders, soldiers, Talmains, and Tom, heading to Hinderstap for supplies. Upon arrival, Mayor Barlden warns of a curfew. Mat, eager to gamble, enters a tavern, initially losing but then proposing a bet to trade his remaining gold for food. Barlden agrees, but insists on using his dice. Mat allows Barlden to throw, which results in a winning pair of 4s, and he wins the supplies. Barlden angrily orders Mat to leave town. As Mat prepares to depart, screams erupt from the village, hinting at impending danger. In Chapter 28, Mat and Talmains navigate chaos in Hinderstap as a violent mob attacks. Despite Mat's efforts, his men abandon their wagon for survival. Mat rescues the injured Delarn, and they seek refuge in an inn, encountering dead kitchen boys and a feral cook. Inside, they find 3 Aes Sedai, but Mat prioritizes escape over rescuing servants. After healing Delarn, they saddle horses and ride away from the turmoil, later spotting lights returning to the village. They decide to investigate, encountering the mayor, Barlden, who explains the town's shared nightmares and missing memories after sunset, urging them to leave. Mat learns that people are searching for him and Perrin, prompting plans to pursue this lead. In Chapter 29, Rand al'Thor arrives in Bandar Eben, troubled by the deaths of those connected to him, particularly Moiraine. He learns from Dobrain that order is restored but senses lingering chaos. Rand confronts Maurice about his decision to exile Katswana, demonstrating emotional control. Suddenly, 2 balconies collapse, causing chaos and injury, which Rand realizes results from his Tavern nature. He reflects on the danger of his newfound power and the access key to a Sangreal. Upon reaching a mansion, Rand plans to meet Milisar Chadmar to find the missing King Alsalam and restore order while considering the fate of his enemies. In Chapter 30, Gawain recalls his father's warning about trusting beautiful women and Aes Sedai. He expresses frustration to Lelaine about Egwene's safety, but she dismisses his concerns. Meeting Bryne, Gawain refuses to betray those who trusted him, insisting that his loyalty lies with Egwene and Elaine. Gawain debates military strategies, emphasizing the danger of a conflict between Aes Sedai factions. Bryne challenges Gawain about his loyalties, forcing him to confront his identity and motivations. As they discuss choices and their implications, Gawain realizes he must make crucial decisions as tensions rise toward war. In Chapter 31, Katswani travels through Bandar Eben, hidden under her hood, to gather intelligence on Rand al'Thor's actions. The city is overwhelmed with refugees due to Rand's chaotic governance, and she learns from innkeeper Quillan Tassil that King Al-Salam is missing, increasing fear among citizens. Katswane questions Quillan about the Merchant Council and nearby economic conditions before heading to the docks to verify rumors of spoilage. Spotting Rand in a procession, she reflects on her failures with him and contemplates a plan to guide him before the impending confrontation with the Dark One. Meanwhile, Rand decides to meet the Seanchan at Fam, despite concerns about safety, while worrying about Lan's dangerous quest to Malker. In Chapter 32, Nynaeve grapples with her AE's Sedai duties while observing unrest in Bandar Eben. Frustrated by Rand's inaction, she seeks him out and interrogates Loral, a docent, about a captive messenger linked to the Domani king. Nynaeve discovers that the messenger, who was meant to provide crucial information, died under suspicious circumstances. Despite her efforts to intimidate the jailers, they claim he died naturally. However, Nynaeve later finds evidence of poisoning in Lady Chadmar, the messenger's captor, prompting her to rush to find the food preparer, a boy named Curb, who may be involved in the scheme. In Chapter 33, Rand meets Nynaeve, who reveals that the young apprentice Curb knows the whereabouts of the missing king. After discovering Curb had tried to poison Milisaire, Nynaeve determines that he is under compulsion, a dark weave that erases personality. Rand instructs Nynaeve to remove the compulsion. After a taxing effort, she successfully unravels the weave, but Curb dies shortly after revealing the location Natrin's barrow. Rand explains that the boy's personality was lost to the compulsion. Nynaeve expresses frustration at Rand's emotional detachment while he contemplates his destiny, believing he must face death in the last battle. In Chapter 34, Mat gathers Talmans, Tom, Noel, Yulin, and Mandevwin to strategize their next move using a map of Trastair. He prepares for a confrontation with a woman seeking him in Perrin, assigning aliases to his men. Mat visits Aludra, who explains her extensive needs for creating dragon fireworks, emphasizing the urgent need for resources and manpower. Their conversation reveals Mat's discomfort around her due to his relationship with Tuon. Just as Mat contemplates their plans, Olver rushes in with news of Varen and AE's Sedai, who has arrived, offering to transport Mat's army to Kemlin quickly. In Chapter 35, Rand arrives in Falm, reflecting on its significance in his transformation into the Dragon Reborn. Accompanied by Nynaeve, he approaches a Seanchan pavilion to negotiate with Tuon, the daughter of the Nine Moons. During their tense meeting, Tuon reveals she was kidnapped by Mat, which shocks Rand. Tuon is compelled by Rand's presence but asserts her dominance, insisting he will bow to her. After Rand storms out, Tuon declares herself Empress, commanding respect from her followers. She resolves to prepare an attack against Rand, recognizing that he cannot be allowed to grow stronger. In Chapter 36, Varen reveals her journey to Mat's camp, originally intended for Tarvalon but redirected by the pattern. She warns Mat of danger to him and Perrin, sharing that Rand has cleansed Sidon. Varen offers to create a gateway to Kemlin, but insists Mat follow her instructions, leading to a negotiation where Mat agrees to wait 30 days before making any decisions. Meanwhile, Fortuona prepares her elite strike force, the Fists of Heaven, for a night raid on Tarvalon. She blesses 5 blood knives, knowing they will sacrifice their lives in the mission, which she believes will change the balance of power. In Chapter 37, Rand targets Grandal by using Lord Ramshallan as bait to confirm her use of compulsion. After Ramshallan returns, clearly influenced by Grandal, Rand destroys her palace with balefire, erasing her and her control over Ramshallan. Nynaeve and Min, deeply troubled by Rand's ruthlessness, realize that he is becoming dangerously indifferent to the cost of his actions. Nynaeve seeks out Katswani to involve herself in her plans, agreeing to obedience. Katswani tasks Nynaeve with finding Perrin Ibera, while Min worries about Rand's mental state, fearing he may lose himself before the last battle. In Chapter 38, Egwene resists her captors in the White Tower, determined to use her imprisonment as a form of rebellion against Elyda's rule. She endures physical punishment without complaint, knowing her resistance undermines Elyda. Unexpectedly, she is released, and Egwene learns that Elyda has turned on Sylviana, blaming her for Egwene's defiance. Egwene sees this as a victory, but fears for Sylviana's life as Elaida threatens to execute her. Egwene plans to rally support and stop the execution. Upon returning to her quarters, she finds Varen waiting, hinting at a critical revelation. In Chapter 39, Varen reveals to Egwene that she is Black Aja but has been secretly spying on them. Before dying from poison, Varen hands Egwene 2 books with key information on the Black Aja. Egwene discovers trusted figures like Sheriam are black. Egwene plans to quietly capture Alviarin, a Black Aja leader. Siuan is shocked by the revelations, but Egwene warns her to stay cautious. Suddenly, Egwene is pulled back to reality by Nicola, who reports a Seanchan attack on the White Tower, leading Egwene to realize her dreams of this assault have come true. In Chapter 40, Siuan convinces Gawain to help her rescue Egwene from the Seanchan attack on Tar Valon. Gareth Bryne joins them after making Siuan bond him as her warder. Meanwhile, Egwene inside the White Tower leads the defense against the Seanchan raid. She uses a powerful sangreal and organizes novices to fight back. Adalorna Bastine, initially captured by the invaders, is freed by Egwene and joins her efforts. Egwene reveals she foresaw the attack in a dream and vows to protect the White Tower, determined to prevent the Seanchan from capturing more channelers. In Chapter 41, Gawain and Bryne enter Tar Valon through a hidden tunnel disguised as tower guards. Inside, Saren organizes defenses against the Seanchan while Egwene battles fiercely to protect the tower. Despite Bryne's soldiers pushing back the Seanchan, casualties mount. Siuan gathers intelligence, confirming Egwene's location. As Bryne fights off an assassin, Siuan saves him from poisoning. Egwene, exhausted, is carried away by Gawain, who vows to protect her. Meanwhile, Saren receives reports of the battle's toll, discovering that Elaida is missing. Elaida awakens in captivity, realizing she has been captured and is being transformed into a Damane. In Chapter 42, Rand grapples with the burden of leadership and the toll of war as he leaves Aradomin. Lews Theron's madness resurfaces, questioning their actions and the countless deaths caused. Rand reflects on the dire state of the Domani people, feeling the weight of their despair and his failure to protect them. As he prepares to depart, Irulan informs him that the food stores have spoiled, leaving the city facing starvation. Despite the cheers awaiting him in Tyr, Rand feels guilt and sorrow over abandoning Aradomin. Basheri discusses the looming threat of the Seanchan, and Rand plans to address it swiftly. In Chapter 43, Egwene grapples with her failures as Amyrlin following the White Tower's attack, deciding to initiate an assault on Tar Valon against the Seanchan. Meanwhile, Aja leaders discuss electing a new Amyrlin, but Egwene takes decisive action by using the Oath Rod to bind Sheriam, exposing her ties to the Black Aja. After proving the presence of dark friends among them, Egwene orchestrates a plan to arrest over 200 Black Sisters. She resolves to begin the attack on Tar Valon that evening, uniting the Aes Sedai against their common enemy despite the looming internal conflict. In Chapter 44, Nynaeve and Rand, accompanied by Aiel, approach Far Madding where a large Borderlander army awaits. Nynaeve urges Rand to attack Tarwin's Gap to assist Lan, but Rand insists on a surprise attack on Sheol Gul. Tensions rise as Rand contemplates using deadly force against the army, but Nynaeve intervenes, reminding him of the innocent people in the city. Rand ultimately decides to send a message to the Borderlanders stating he will soon ride to battle at Sheol Gul. They then travel to the Stone of Ter, where Nynaeve learns Perrin is nearby, prompting a plan to find him. In Chapter 45, Egwene walks through the rebel camp in a crimson gown, symbolizing unity and the bloodshed from executing 50 Black Sisters. Tensions rise after a Seanchan attack, and Egwene learns that Terangriel used for dreams are missing, suspecting a Forsaken is impersonating an Aes Sedai. General Bryne reveals the Tower Guard is outnumbered, leading Egwene to hesitate before ordering an assault on the White Tower. Just as she is about to give the command, a procession of Aes Sedai arrives, announcing that the Hall has chosen to raise her to the Amyrlin seat after Elaida's presumed death. Egwene accepts the offer, prompting her forces to advance toward the tower. In Chapter 46, Egwene returns to the White Tower, determined to proceed with the Amyrlin ceremony despite Siuan's concerns. News arrives about Bryne's troops dealing with Seanchan fires. During the ceremony, Egwene is officially raised to the Amyrlin seat, where she confronts the sitters about the tower's recent failures. She emphasizes the need for accountability and healing among the Ajas. Egwene discusses plans for reorganizing the White Tower, including appointing a new mistress of novices to accommodate an influx of initiates. She delivers a rousing speech to the gathered sisters, calling for unity and strength against the approaching last battle. In Chapter 47, Rand wanders the Stone of Tyr, troubled after meeting the Borderlanders. He contemplates his identity and the weight of prophecy while preparing for battle against the Seanchan. In the heart of the stone, he reunites with Tam, reflecting on their complex relationship. Their conversation reveals Rand's struggle with the burden of being the dragon reborn, feeling like a puppet of the pattern. As emotions surge, Rand confronts his rage and fear, threatening Tam in a moment of lost control. Realizing the potential for destruction, he panics and escapes through a gateway to Ebudar, fleeing the horror of his actions. In Chapter 48, Min waits with other women in Kitswani's room, anxious about Rand's meeting with his father Tam. Min struggles with her alliance to Kitswani, feeling a mix of resignation and frustration as she seeks answers regarding Rand's future. She studies a text about prophecies, questioning interpretations of a blade of light and the three shall be one. Tam bursts in, revealing that Rand attempted to kill him while channeling the One Power. He describes Rand's unsettling demeanor, prompting concern about his instability. Min realizes Rand has opened a gateway and surmises he is headed to Ebudar to confront the Seanchan. In Chapter 49, Rand walks through the streets of Ebudar disguised as an ordinary man, contemplating the stability the Seanchan have brought to the city, despite their role as conquerors. He reflects on his identity and the guilt from nearly killing his father Tam. Rand realizes he must confront the Seanchan but hesitates, grappling with the consequences of using the One Power. He feels the weight of destruction upon him, acknowledging his purpose as necessary destruction. Ultimately, he creates a gateway to Dragonmount where he confronts his past and the depths of his despair. In Chapter 50, Rand sits atop Dragonmount, grappling with his identity as the Dragon Reborn. Struggling with anger and pain from his past, he reflects on the sacrifices he has made and the heavy burden of the lives lost, including Moiraine's. He contemplates the cyclical nature of life and death, questioning the purpose of his suffering. As he channels immense power, Rand realizes that life offers the chance to love again, inspiring him to fight for redemption. He channels the power through an access key, shattering the Sangreal Choitan Kal, ending the Tempest and finding clarity and joy in his purpose. Epilogue. Egwene sits in the Amerlin study, stripped of Elida's influence. She orders Elida's possessions secured for future examination and faces disapproval from Romanda and Lelaine over her plans to train Damane. Reports reveal that most of the Black Aja escaped during the Seanchan attack, and Egwene feels the pressure of their absence. She considers the possibility of the Forsaken Masana hiding within the tower. After a soft knock, Sylviana invites Egwene to witness a gap in the clouds, revealing sunlight over Dragonmount, marking a significant moment of hope amidst ongoing turmoil.